Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
So, I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Google Architect program,
I am cloud hired.
See! I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glow Cloud team.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we are here to help you build your career. We're here to answer any questions you have so we can strategically guide you so you can get the cloud job of your dreams as fast as possible. My name is Mike Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers. I've been in this tech industry actually from 1993, but we're going to call it 1996 since that was my first major tech job. And I feel better saying 25 years in tech than kind of 30. But here's the key. I remember working on the first clouds back in the 1990s and all the clouds and consulting to cloud providers, internet service providers. And it's been the most fun 30 years of my life. I got to tell you, every last bit of it was fun. And if you want to know how to become a cloud architect, ask your questions, we'll get you there. You want to know how to become a cloud engineer? Ask your questions, we'll get you there. Want to become an AWS solutions architect? We know how to get you there, and we've got lots of graduates that are working there, and we know how to get you there too. Here's the key. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and I want you to have a straight line, rocket ship-like success to the job of your dreams. And that's why we're here completely free, once every week and another time on Zoom, to answer your questions so you can have the career of your dreams. I became a principal architect in less than 2 years, and you can too. I never had a help desk job. I never had a sysadmin job. I never had a basic intro job. In fact, I don't even believe in going for intro jobs. I believe in training and getting the job of your dreams as your first job and then enjoying the rest of your life. It's not like you need to start in the mailroom and work your way up anymore. There's great education out there, and that's that. So that's why we are here. I'm also here with my Chief Marketing Officer, Alonzo. He's an expert in business. He's an expert in marketing and helping our students build the brand. Our people don't even apply for jobs. We don't do that. Our students have the world attack them like vultures and say, I need a good cloud architect, and I know you're from Go Cloud Careers. And a lot of that is from the branding work that Alonzo does with our students, and the fact that so many magazines write about us every single day and our success. So we're here to help you. But before we begin with the questions, I want to tell you about some free stuff we have for you. Everybody likes free, right? Next week, we have a completely free AWS Solution Architect Associate Bootcamp, and we'll go much deeper than the AWS Solutions Architect Associate. We'll start at the very beginning, and we're going to get much deeper most of the way through the Solution Architect Professional, because even all of that is just the bare minimum for you to know. And we're going to cover that during the day. But, you know, it's my belief that you can't get an education watching videos. So we're going to have you watch videos. We'll answer questions intermediately in the chat box intermediately. And then after the sessions, each day, we're going to invite you back to our private systems, either on Zoom or one of our webinar platforms, and we'll invite you to ask questions. So not only can you take the class, you can get the in-person classroom experiences if you paid several $1,000s, and it's all free. I want you to get an education. So we're going to do completely free. It's all week next week for the most part. Sign up now. We got a free book for you that's going to support you in the class. We'll get you free into the Solutions Architect Bootcamp. And later that day, we'll answer your questions in a private meeting where you can talk. And you're not going to be asking a question on the YouTube channel. So please be aware of that. Now, tomorrow, we've got a webinar to teach you how to get your first cloud architect job. And I promise you, certification is not more than 3 to 5% of what it takes to be a cloud architect. But we get people hired every day at AWS, at Azure, at Google, at Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, and every other elite organization. I can get you hired too. So join us tomorrow completely free on the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. And while you're at it, get the free ebook that we wrote for you to help you in your career, where we give you the list of every cloud architect skill. And guess what? Most of them aren't even tech. That's right, I said it. After being an architect for 25 years, most of those skills aren't even tech. Tech is a given, but it's all those other things that are going to get you hired. So I want you to ask your questions. So we're here to answer your questions. Please don't be shy asking your questions. I can tell you why. Everybody waits until we're ready to leave. And then afterwards, I get 50 LinkedIn messages, and our company gets 200 messages that say, I'd like to talk to Mike. And we tell them that it's, in order to schedule a private session with Mike, there's a 24-week wait now at $1,200 an hour. But I'm here free, and that's why I do it. I don't want to charge anybody $1,200 an hour. It's just the opportunity cost of my time, so I dedicate this time free. So please ask your questions. I want to help you. Before we begin, Alonzo, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, absolutely, Mike. It's always good partnering with you, buddy, and making sure that everyone gets the right information about them becoming cloud architects. So we really encourage everyone. I don't know why, but you know, when we put in that it's that fear of missing out, I guess, when we tell people we're about to leave. So let's start off the right way. Get your questions in now. Think about them. Write them down on paper and apply the questions. We really want to get you to where you need to be. This is not a boot camp. This is your career we're talking about, and having the right information is what we want to provide for you, but we can't do that without the questions. So please fire away, get your questions out there, and let's get going. From Greg. Greg, I believe, is our student. Are there opportunities for networking or industry connections during the program, such as interactions with potential employees or guest speakers?
Greg, there's an incredible amount of networking opportunities for you. If you had come to class just last Friday, and I know you're a student, so if you had come to class, you would have met Angelo. Angelo is a working enterprise architect that we train. You may also notice if you come to classes, you may see my friend Alvin, who's a VP over at NVIDIA. You see my friend Andrea come to classes. You get people like Lohit, who's an architect at AWS, or Yvonne, who constantly comes from AWS, or Jermaine, who's an enterprise architect. So they're constant opportunities. Now, here's the thing. We've had directors at AWS come to our class and talk about why they like our students. We've had VPs of HR from other cloud companies, but you got to come to class, Greg, to see it. And all this stuff is all announced in class. So, Greg, I want you to be successful. You bought our program. Please use it. Come to class, go meet people, and use our Slack community. Anywhere you go, they will find 20 people that want to work with you, that want to connect with you and want to help you. But please leverage our community. Please leverage the program you bought, and you're going to be wildly successful. But yes, constant opportunities here. You want to add to that, Alonso?
Totally agree, Mike. I think a lot of people, when we speak with you all about Go Cloud Careers and the Career Cloud Architect Career Development Program or the Elite Bundle or any of your chosen programs, I don't think people have realized all the resources that they have available. If you have any concerns, reach back to the onboarding videos to make sure that you get all the details, or go on the Slack channel. There is 2-3 dozen different channels to meet all of your cloud architect development needs are at your fingertips. So make sure you are utilizing the resources that you paid for, the resources that are available to you at a moment's notice from a global scale. There's always people that you can network with, people that are aligning with your career trajectories. We have everything that you need, but make sure that you seek, discover, check out all the resources in the video form, in the Slack form, in anything that's available. Do your work. You know, the program works if you do, but if you don't leverage everything that we have compiled through our experience, through what we've learned throughout the cloud, throughout branding, throughout marketing, and all the other resources to help round out who you are to become as a competent cloud architect, we can only do so much. So please do your work, okay? We really appreciate you. Again, from Greg, how does a program stay up to date with the ever evolving cloud industry? And how does it ensure that its curricular remains relevant and current?
No, Greg, there's two questions. There's one mistake you have in there, which I'm going to correct, but I'll tell you how we stay relevant. I speak to chief information officers, to tech recruiters, and to hiring managers, and to HR people of cloud companies constantly. And we're always making sure that we're there. We also take our people that graduate and we talk to them all the time. Did we miss anything? Did we not miss anything? And Greg, you know what really the funny thing is? So we had 2 architects come at our conference last. And you know what they wanted to talk about? Not tech. They wanted to talk about soft skills, leadership skills, communication skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence, and CXO relevancy. They said that was the big thing. So we're constantly asking employers what they want. And that's why, I guess it was about a year ago, when one of the directors at AWS came to class and said what he wanted. Can't remember the name of that cloud company, began with a C. I can't remember where they came in and they wanted to get more of our people. When Angelo turned in a job, they sent another chief information officer to say, who are you? So we don't have a problem getting employers to want, because we do it the Japanese way. We ask the client, what do you want? And then we build it. And that was the difference between General Motors, who's failed and went bankrupt multiple times and been bailed out, versus the Japanese automakers. And this is why we do it differently. American people said, here's the car we're going to build for you. You want it, right? And then nobody bought the American cars. And the Japanese people said, what kind of car do you want? What are you willing to pay? And then they built it. So that's why we're always there. And we've added a lot of content, and we've made our program over about 4 times. Every time that something changes. And Greg, what's really changing is the macro and microeconomic environments, not the cloud. Now, the flaw in your question is you're talking about the ever-evolving cloud industry. Gregory, when you come to class, you're going to learn what the cloud is. The cloud is somebody else's network in a data center. That's it. And the cloud still cannot keep up with the network and the data center. So nearly every AWS new feature you see is trying to catch up with something we did 20 and 30 years ago in the data center. I'll give you a few examples. About 3 years ago, I told everybody you can't use AWS Route 53 because it didn't support DNSSEC and it made you wide open to hijacking. So we were using F5 solutions. AWS allowed DNSSEC and now they have modern things, but that was just a couple of years ago. Last year, the principal architects at AWS were all excited. They supported IPsec over a direct connection. Now, those of us that were in the industry were using IPsec over a direct connection in 1998. AWS just caught up this year. Now, what was another fun one that AWS came up with in the last 6 months? You can now put a security group on a load balancer, limiting what traffic can come into the load balancer. Guess what? F5, the people that made load balancers, did that in 1999. So what you're saying is the cloud is still catching up. The cloud is a virtual network and a data center. And when you try to take the stuff that's been done in hardware and put it in software, that's all the cloud really is. So there's not been a lot of changes in cloud computing. The AI that I've worked on is 20 some years old. I was working on AI systems 20 years ago. Now, in those days, it was CPUs, and then it moved to GPUs and TPUs. And you know where they're running on, Greg? CPUs, GPUs, and TPUs. And it's the same GPUs from NVIDIA, whether it's an AWS, or if I buy some H100 GPUs in my data center. Nothing changes. They run on the same servers, in some cases made by the same people. So the cloud still has about 15 years to catch up with the network and data center and features. And when you go to like an AWS conference and they talk about all these new features, do you know what these features usually are? A customer wanted to buy their cloud solution and they needed a feature in the AWS cloud or the Azure cloud or the Google cloud that could keep up with the data center. And there you go, new feature, and they talk about it. So there's really not that much new in the cloud at all. It's merely a virtual representation. No, because it's virtual, it becomes more agile, and that agility improves business's performance. But all in all, they're there. Now, Greg, the real key for you is I need your fundamentals to be good. When your fundamentals are strong, you will know everything. And I see Ahmed put a question in there. And when I answer Ahmed's question soon, he's from Palestine, I think it's going to help you understand a lot of these things better. But we constantly talk to employers. We constantly talk to recruiters. We constantly work with architects out there and see if there's anything new. And as soon as there is, we build it. And we've got 3 actual professional cameras that we use to go record these content as fast as possible. We bring in good friends and industry experts like David Lithicum. He'll be back again on, I believe it's December 5th with me. And we're constantly working with people that are known to be the best in the industry to find out anything they need to make the program and product better. That's why our students work at AWS, Azure, Google, Cisco, Apple, Microsoft, KPMG, Accenture, Deloitte, Capgemini, British Broadcasting Company, JP Morgan Chase, and any other important company you think of, they work there. Good question.
So from Greg again, what resources or support does the program offer to help candidates secure job placements after completion?
Greg, when you actually complete enough of the content that you're allowed, we would want you people to see you, talk to you, and hire you, and you're not there yet. But when you're ready and you've completed a percentage of the program, the branding, the interview, and the resume work is going to be there. It's nothing to get a job. Although the economy is a little rough now, but it's nothing. It is near impossible to hire an architect. Here's what it's like, Greg. If I interview 10,000 architects, 9,950 want to tell me they can code. And I'm like, well, great, but I don't need you to code. I need you to design a solution. Less than 50 of those 10,000 will have the business acumen, the leadership skills, the sales skills, the executive presence, communication skills, and emotional intelligence to do the job. And most of the people I get are experts at how to build. And I discuss this with hiring managers all the time. They're like, Mike, why is people want to come to an architect interview? They bring me a list of projects they did. And I ask them, how does this work or how to design this? And they say, I'm certified. And they say, the next person that tells me I'm certified, I'm going to call security and escort them out of the building. I want to hear, I'm asking them a question. how does this work? And they say, I know I'm certified. Well, they just told me they don't know by diverting to something else. And then they bluffed and lied to me, and I don't hire people that lie to me. So, Mike, find me this. And my students will never say that. So, Greg, the second you put Go Cloud Careers and you follow our resume work and you do our branding things, you're going to be bombarded by people. The best example was Robert Welch. Not everybody follows our directions. I don't know how many of you remember Robert Welch. Robert Welch was a 61-year-old guy. Robert Welch was an amazing guy. Love him. Heart of gold, hard worker. And he had what I would call a communication challenge when he first met us. And he had some business acumen challenges when he met us. And he also knew engineering, but not architecture. And sometimes they're the hardest to transform. Well, Bob Welch came to class, every class, worked hard, studied hard, got together with a group of people, and then I introduced the branding. In fact, in class, I did his resume, just like I'm going to be doing Darter's resume this Friday in class. Second, I made those LinkedIn changes, and we told him what to post on LinkedIn. He got between 15 and 20 interview requests per day. And his biggest challenge was saying which ones he wanted and which ones he didn't. 99% of the students I have that do our resume and branding work, their biggest problem is telling the recruiters that reach out to them, I'm sorry, I'm not looking for a job right now, but can we build a relationship and work with you in 6 months? Because going on an interview when you're not ready does two things. It convinces the company to write down and put you on a list that says don't hire you, and it kills your confidence, and you need your confidence on an interview. So we don't ever want people going on an interview until they're ready. Now, sometimes we tell students they're not ready because we know they're not ready, but usually it's very clear to the students when they can do any of our architectures without thinking about it and they get bored in class, they are ready. And I love that feeling when someone says, Mike, I'm bored. I'm like, okay, now it's time to interview. And a month later, they're hired. So don't worry about that. Do the work, come to class. And Greg, that's going to be your biggest question. Since you're not actually using Slack and you didn't make it to class last week to see some of the external alumni that are there, come to class, do the work, and the magic's going to happen for you. And I'm glad you're asking these questions. I'm just begging you to come to class. You paid for it. Please come to class, Gregory. Please come to class. I want you to be successful. Anything from you, Alonso?
Couldn't have said it better, Greg. We really want to help you, and I see there's no apology needed for the questions, but I really strongly believe that when you attend class, and even if you can't interact, if you can just participate and just listen to what we have to say, I think a lot of all your questions will come to fruition. So please, take advantage of what you paid for, and I think you'll be even more surprised at all the resources at your fingertips for you to be successful.
Yeah, and that's the key. I love that you're asking questions. It's great, and I'm thrilled to answer them. I just want you to actually change your life. And since you bought our course, I want you to tell me, Mike, I am hired. I live for it.
From Ahmed. Hello, Mr. Michael. I am a big fan of your videos. I'm from Palestine and want to ask something related to Amazon, the advanced networking. What I actually mean is the ASN number when you use direct connection. I like that. I like that question.
So, Ahmed, it's a great question. Haven't been to Palestine in a little while, but I used to go all the time. Spent a lot of time in that part of the world. Now, here's the thing. Here's the reason I don't like the AWS Advanced Networking. It has no networking in it. In fact, quite honestly, it's the worst certification that's out there. So what you're actually asking me is about BGP. And BGP is what's called an exterior gateway protocol, and it's used to connect different organizations to each other. And each organization is assigned what's called an autonomous system number. So if Alonzo would be called 65312 as his autonomous system number, and I'm 65313, when we would use BGP, we would create a eBGP connection for you, which would get you to your goals. So here's what we have for you. We have a document that I wrote that will explain the entire BGP protocol. It will explain the BGP packets. For example, it will explain the BGP messages. It will explain the BGP finite state machine, which is absolutely critical. It will explain, all the BGP attributes like wait, local preference, AS path, for example, and it will teach you the traffic engineering, and it's going to teach you what you need to know. So Tyrone, you're in the back end. Can you find a link to the BGP document that we wrote? Because I want Ahmed to have it. Now, Ahmed, that's going to give you all that you're asking and about 1,000 times more. And Ahmed, if you want to learn addition to that, later to that, there's a really great book written by a gentleman named Bassam Halabi. You may see him as Bassam, you may see him as Sam. Sometimes he tried to get rid of his Middle Eastern first name and go to by Sam, but I know him as Bassam. So Bassam Halabi wrote a really good book called Internet Routing Architectures. And to really learn BGP, I also recommend reading the Internet Engineering Task Force, RFCs. That's what we CCIE, Cisco Certified Internet Experts and Network Architects do. That's the original specification. You read that. Now, if you'd like to get a networking certification, I'd recommend you skip that AWS Advanced Networking. Employers know there's nothing in it. It's a complete and total waste of your time. And get a Cisco Certified Network Professional. In there, you'll learn about interior gateway protocols like OSPF. You'll learn about running quality of service. You'll learn about the switching technologies that we actually need to use. You'll learn about route reflector technologies, which will make things like transit gateways and cloud hubs seem so easy to you. And you're actually going to learn something other than the name of a service and how to configure that service and why you should use that service without knowing whether it's the right one or wrong. So Ahmed, I hope I answered your question. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're not suffering right now. I hope things are going great your way. I am thrilled that you stopped by. And the next time I'm in Palestine, I'd love to meet you. I go all the time to that part of the world.
From a LinkedIn user, thanks, Mike, on all of what you're doing for the cloud community. Would you advise that one focus on one cloud and extend the other cloud later on? I see a lot of job on AWS architects, so I was thinking maybe focusing on that to get in as a newbie would be easier. What are your thoughts?
LinkedIn user, if you only focus on AWS, you will never get a job anywhere, anytime. So I want you to understand this. 98% of all organizations use more than one cloud. I'm going to say that again. 98%. Now, the great news is all the cloud is somebody else's network in a data center. So let's say you wanted to buy eggs at the supermarket because you wanted to make an omelet. Now, I don't know which country you're in, but there's this French company, Carrefour, that sells eggs. When I go to my village in Greece, where I'm from, there's an American supermarket and a Greek supermarket that sells eggs. I live in Florida. I can buy eggs at Costco. I can buy them at Walmart. I can buy them at Sam's Clubs. I can buy them at Publix, Winn-Dixie, or any other supermarket. Why? Because they're eggs. Now, LinkedIn user, what if I told you that every cloud is the same? It's just somebody else's network in a data center, and the only thing different is the name. So what you're really asking is, should I learn how to drive a Toyota but not know how to drive a Honda, a Mercedes, a Ford, a Chevy, a BMW, or Ferrari? And my answer to that would be no, learn to drive a car. So if you really understand the technology, if you really know what a virtual machine is and how it works and how the hypervisor works, guess what? The IBM cloud, you're good to go. The AWS cloud, you're good to know, but you got to realize AWS paid branding people to call a virtual machine, which was invented in 1999 in EC2 instance. Now, Google paid their marketing people to come up with the name Compute Engine instance. Microsoft decided to say, well, we're not that fancy. We're going to call it an Azure virtual machine. Oracle decided to call it an Oracle virtual machine. Now, what if we're talking about a NoSQL database? Chances are it's multi-cloud. If you just learn AWS, they're going to force you or shove you into using DynamoDB. But in multi-cloud, DynamoDB doesn't work. And if you truly learn the cloud and you learn all the network and the data center and the business applications we use, you'll say, well, do I use Apache Cassandra or MongoDB? Which is my read load versus my write load? Which features and functionality do we need? And then you're going to be poof, you're going to go there. If you learn about storage area networks like file storage, whether it's an NFS share for Linux systems in my data center or an EFS share, it's the same stuff. It's just a different name. So I want you to learn the tech, LinkedIn user. Understand how the technology works. What's it actually used for? Now, LinkedIn user, understand architects do not configure technology. There's no Python, there's no coding, there's no Terraform, there's no DevOps, there's none of that in our job. We meet with the client and we start by finding out the vision for their organization, the vision for the business. So you're going to need some good business skills, not brand names. Then you have to figure out how the business operates. Who does what? What's the customer journey? How does the business make money? What's the supply chain look like? What are the business processes? And then you got to go work with that business and say, what are your goals in the future and how do you want people to work in the future? Only then can we examine their current technology and then design a technology solution that supports their new business initiatives and goals. And then we've got to go schmooze and socialize, manage stakeholders, play golf with people, take them to the Super Bowl, drink with our clients, all to get information and manage them to convince them they need it. Then we have to document the architecture. We got to present it back to the customer. We got to go sell it back with them. We got to negotiate a new deal, and then we're there. So LinkedIn user, please come to our webinar tomorrow on how to get your first cloud architect job. It's free. We can meet face-to-face. We can talk, and you're going to learn exactly what you need to do. Secondly, please download the free guide on how to become how to become a cloud architect and get your first cloud architect job. It's free. It will list all the skills you need, and you will see very clearly you can't just know one cloud. I have no use for somebody, and I've hired lots of architects that only knows one cloud. I have use for people that know how to make my businesses better. And that's an understanding of my underlying technology infrastructure and my future technology infrastructure and an understanding of my business. And when someone says, I know AWS and they got certified, here's what they look like. They're like an excited little child running for an ice cream cone. I want to use this, I want to use this, I want to use this, I want to use this. And then I ask them, how is this going to help my business? And they go, huh? And I say, how is this going to change the role of my supply chain? How does this affect my salespeople? And I said, go back to the drawing board. Here's our current technology. Map me out a technology blueprint that has no names. Virtual machines, containers, block storage, object storage, file storage, next generation firewall, intrusion detection. And then only after that are we in the position as architects to go negotiate with vendors. Do I use Fortinet? Do I use Palo Alto or Cisco for my enterprise-grade firewalls? I don't know until I know what the business requirements are. And then I can choose my vendors and see who does it better. So please learn the cloud, not a cloud. You do that, and you'll be great.
Perfect. From Kevin, if relevant, what are your thoughts on the Optus and ISP provider breakdown in Australia? To me, it seems to me to be a bad oversight to have one ISP provider for your brick and mortar store.
Kevin, you bring up a good thing. So before we say that it's good or bad to only have a single internet service provider, we have to look at what are the business requirements. So let's say my cat Cindy was to make a website where she was selling tuna. My cat Cindy is beautiful. She loves tuna. And she had 3 friends that had access to their parents' credit cards to buy tuna. Her friend named Caddy, her friend named Sunny, and her friend named Big Caddy. And they were the 3 people that could buy the stuff. Now, in that environment, would it make sense to have 2 internet service providers? Probably not, unless each of those 3 cats were buying $100,000 a year at a time, of cat food at a time, because it's small business. But there's other times where it's an emergency services system or a hospital where if the systems go down, people die. Now, the next thing we have to calculate, Kevin, is what is the cost of downtime for a business. For 44% of businesses, 1 minute of downtime equals $1 million lost. I'm going to say that again. For 44% of enterprises, basically 1 in 2, every minute of downtime is 1 minute lost. Now, in reality, Kevin, how many businesses can tolerate a single ISP? Almost none. And that's why network architects like me have been designing BGP solutions for organizations to connect to 2 different internet service providers, load share and load share. So that's why organizations use more than one. But now let's talk about the cloud. A single cloud provider is a single point of failure also. Really think you can design a high availability system on a single cloud? Think again. So all the clouds, no matter how many reasons and availability zones you use, share a common network. Network goes down, poof, whole cloud goes down. So the single cloud is just as bad as the single ISP, which is why when we were designing a wide area network for an organization, we almost always use two service providers. Pop a link on Verizon, pop a link on AT&T, pop a link on Etisalat, pop a link on British Telecom, pop a link on Telefonica, back it up with Vodafone. So we almost always use two for anything that matters. Same thing for the cloud. But I don't know if it's a bad oversight or not, because I don't actually know the needs and the business requirements. And that's really the key. But I'll tell you, in most cases, a single cloud does not make sense. And it's not more costly to use two clouds. I mean, instead of using two availability zones for a website on AWS, I can use one availability zone in Azure and one in AWS. Azure goes down, who cares? AWS goes down, who cares? And I can even run disaster recovery in Google. I expect the cloud to fail. It's going to happen. So network can take the cloud down. Now, how about hacking? Has there been any hacking attempts on the cloud? Well, Azure will be honest about it. Azure's been hacked quite a bit, and they will tell you. Other cloud providers go down for power failures. Now, I don't know how you get a power failure in a data center. One of the cloud providers talks about data center failures and all kinds of failures. Another cloud provider misconfigured BGP, and they were down for a half a day. So in the end of the day, a single cloud is a single point of failure. A single internet service provider is a single point of failure. So what we have to do as architects is the following. We have to see what the business requirements are. And we have to design a system to enable those business requirements to occur. And we have to make sure that the systems we design don't cost more than the value they provide for the customer. We do that, it's a good solution. And ideally, we should also make sure that our solutions in the future not only meet today's current business needs, but also meet the future business needs. And for all of you guys out there, I'm going to give you a secret for that. Don't use proprietary stuff. Don't use AWS ECS, swap it out with Kubernetes. Don't use Microsoft Cosmos as a database. Use Apache Cassandra or MongoDB. Same thing for Google Cloud Bigtable. I have no use for that, but Apache Cassandra or MongoDB does. Now, how about a database? I'm not going to use Amazon Aurora with any customer I ever have. Is it a bad database? No, it's a great database. It's a great database. But I can use Oracle, and I can stick it in all clouds. Problem solved. Future innovation allowed. So I don't use proprietary stuff. I think use things that are more open, because I also know, it's like me, and I love my Macs. I have Macs. And everything that I use is 10 times harder because I use a Mac. I need a video encoder, my choices are down. I need an audio interface, my choices go down. I want to run software for something, my choices go down. So if I use the Windows system, if I could get used to it, which I still have no idea how to use Windows. Last time I knew anything about Windows was when it was Windows in T4.0 when I did an MCOC. Then I'd probably be better off on Windows, but I don't know how to use Windows. I'm a network guy. I'm familiar with Linux and Unix, so I stick to a Mac. So proprietary lock me in. And Alonzo and I are Mac users. We're the only two crazy Mac users in our company. I always have problems. The rest of my team uses Windows, and everything's just simple. Good question, Kevin. Now you're thinking like an architect. I'm really happy to watch you grow.
I'm seeing that progress as well. From Suave, I'm interested in the non-live architect course. How many hours is the course? I know everyone learns at a different pace, but I'd like to get an idea of the class length.
So the course is approximately 700 hours of training. That's right. I said it. 700 hours of training. Now, Suave, I'm going to tell you, 98% of our students get hired before they actually finish the training. But we don't leave anything out. I mean, so the answer is it's about 700 hours. Now, how fast can you remember those? I don't know. How many can you get through each day? I don't know. What your learning pace is? I also don't know. But I will tell you 700 hours. So if you did 20 hours a week, you'd be dealing with about 35 weeks. Now, understand in the non-live course, you always have the option to upgrade. And I'll explain the difference between the live course and the non-live course for you, just so you know. And here's what I really want you to think about. So in the live class, you actually design the architectures with me. In the non-live class, you actually watch others design the architecture with me, which could be fine if you can learn that way. Many people can. In the live, I get to know you. Now, the reason I like knowing you is when an employer calls me and says, Mike, I need somebody great. If I know you, Swab, I can say, I know this guy Swab, he's in my class, he's a rock star. Or she's a rock star. If I don't know you, I can't do that because ethics would be there. But I have to tell you, we have an incredible number of people that have bought our live course and never showed up for class. And they've done it all via watching the videos. And that's why we came up with the non-live. We also came up with the non-live because I was really concerned about people in India and Africa being able to afford our program. We work with some wonderful, wonderful people all over the world. And though we actually picked pricing with Africa in mind and India in mind, and then gave everybody else a discount as opposed to charging what our course is worth, we're still aware that even that may be too expensive for people. But that's just our costs to hire, real architects and MBAs and PhD business school professors. It just takes a lot to run the kind of quality education we're doing. But Suave, I think you'll do great. The course is 700 hours. So I would say 6 to 12 months is probably what it would take for you to complete it and get hired. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to see your name in Slack pop up. How about you, Alonzo? Anything to add here?
Yeah, I think the same thing. I mean, it's the dedication that we always want to focus on. We always want to make sure that you, just like Mike had mentioned, the program works if you put in the incremental work every day. It's not 5 hours here, then 1 minute the next. Create a consistent workflow for you to adhere to so that this stays with you, because during the initial phases, sometimes this may be more like a perishable skill. It takes iteration after iteration to learn the techniques, to learn the software, the technology and so forth, and how it all comes together. So use your discipline, focus each day on it, whether it's a live class or not. The determination remains the same so that we can get you from point A to point B in the closest, most direct way possible.
So before we get to the next one, if you've got questions, please ask them.
Yeah.
Alonzo and I have dedicated the time to be here for you. If there's no questions, Alonzo has got plenty of work to do, and I have plenty of work to do as well. But I really want to be here for you, so ask the questions if you have some.
Please do. From Darnell. Hi, Mike. I know you're a huge supporter of the Cisco CCNP. However, since I've earned my CCNP in route, switch, and voice back in 2015, I feel bad that I never really kept up with it, and I know it will help me now in my journey at Go Cloud Careers.
Darnell, let me be frank. I'm not a supporter of any certification other than the Cisco Certified Internet Expert. And I'll tell you why. The problem with certifications is they're almost like vendor brainwashing. Here's the stuff I want you to get excited about without telling you how it's going to impact the business. And they really don't teach you any of the architecture, any of the design, any of how it's going to impact. So all certifications are missing the things that matter most. Now, having said that, I love certifications because they can help you get an interview. I also like certifications if there's a chance of you learning something. And what I mean by this is you can do an entire AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional along with an AWS Advanced Networking and still know zero about cloud computing. Now, you'll know the AWS terminology and vocabulary. You'll be all excited about using these proprietary solutions, but you won't know what to use, how it works, and when. Now, I also want to put it into the context about difficulty of certifications versus how much you could learn. You can have an entire AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional book in 500 pages. To create, and that includes the associate and professional, to create a good book for the CCNP, which includes the CCNA, because that's the foundation to do the CCNP, you're dealing with about 10,000 pages of reading. So given that it's about 20 times more challenging than the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, you're actually going to learn something, which means you're going to learn something about IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting in the CCNP. You're going to learn about VLANs and VLAN tagging and VLAN trunking and link aggregation groups in the CCNP. You're going to learn IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting. You're going to learn OSPF and other interior gateway protocols. You're going to learn BGP and how to set it up and how to optimize it and how the protocol works. You're going to learn how to secure things in your LAN. You're going to learn quality of service and rate limiting and all these other things. So in the process of the CCNP, you're actually going to get somewhat of a networking education. Because it's different than an AWS cert. It's more meant to teach you something as opposed to get you excited about a technology so you want to convince everybody that they need it. So I like the CCNP. Now, here's what I say about certifications. I won't hire anybody that's got more than 3 certifications. What? What did I say? I said I won't hire anybody that has more than 3 certifications. And here's why. All certifications, including the Cisco Certified Internet Expert, are intro level. And I don't need intro level anybody on my team. I need people that have skills, that can do the job, that can satisfy my customer. Even the CCIE, which I had to read 75,000 pages just to learn. Once I passed that exam, that's when I got to learn. That's when I got to be on progress and experience it. So I don't want to hire anybody with more than 3 certifications because it tells me they're focused on entry-level skills, entry-level skills, entry-level skills, entry-level skills. And when I see somebody with 10 cloud certifications, which are covering a developer's career, a maintenance person or sysops person's career, a DevOps person's career, which is something different, a software developer's career, some big data person's career, and they're not a vampire, which means they can't live 2,000 to 3,000 years, I know they can't have any depth in anything, and I can't hire them anyway. So if I've got somebody with too many certifications, it's like, great, this person is obsessed with entry-level skills. But if I've got 2 or 3 good certifications, Darnell, I can see the person's targeted, they're focused, they're looking for depth, and now I want to talk to them. So I like that AWS, Certified Solutions Architect Professional. It won't teach you anything about architecture, but it's going to get you an interview. Or the Azure Solutions Architect Expert, either or, same stuff, different names. Next, I like a networking one or a security one. If you like security, I love the CISSP. Why? Because it's not focused on teaching you how to configure firewalls. It's teaching you about security policy and architecture. If you want to do something more on the networking side, I love it, the CCNP. Again, medium level introductory networking, but you're going to learn something. And honestly, I actually like TOGAF. And I've changed my position on TOGAF over the years. And the reason I like TOGAF is as follows. You look at any of these cloud certifications, and they're all about a name of a service, which you can't use with your clients. You start using S3 with your client, they'll laugh at you. But if you talk to them about their object storage and their object storage metadata, they're going to be interested in what you have to say. Very interested. And they're going to understand you too. But at least with TOGAF, it sets you up with a framework. Like if you already know how to be an architect, TOGAF's great. If you don't know how to be an architect, TOGAF is going to be worthless. But at least, because there's no architecture training in TOGAF. But I like TOGAF because it's a framework, it's in a methodology. Start with the business executives and ask their vision. TOGAF phase A, TOGAF phase B, figure out the business architecture. TOGAF phase C, figure out the data architecture. TOGAF phase D, figure out the technology architecture. And then the governance and all these other things and change management. So I like that. So they're my 3 favorite certifications for cloud people. The people that do that do really well. But you might still remember the networking. Maybe you can still remember the types of LSAs and OSPF and how OSPF calculates a path and all those messages. If you do, don't waste your time doing it again. You got expertise, you got vacuum, and you're good. If not, go redo that CCNP, go get that TOGAF, go get AWS or Azure cert. And then, Darnell, you're one of our students, focus on learning all the stuff you need, and you're going to get a great job.
From Fola Shaki, what's your favorite aspects of being a cloud architect, Mike?
Oh, I love every part of being an architect.
Yeah.
I'll start out from the beginning. Now, Fola Shaki, I was an engineer for a little while. I actually liked doing engineering work, but here's what I hated. I was treated like the help. Everybody treated me like I was irrelevant. I didn't matter. And while all those architects were going out there and going to dinners and traveling and going to sporting events, you got me stuck coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning fixing things because I was the only guy to figure it out. When I left engineering and became an architect, 2 things happened. I got a several $100,000 a year raise, which to me was a lot of money, and it changed my life. People treated me with respect. I no longer came in at 3 o'clock in the morning to go fix stuff that was broken. I worked relatively normal business hours, and my extra work hours weren't learning stuff or getting stuck. It was, taking my client for dinners and drinks to try to get to know them. So I really like that. The second side of it is I got to talk to people. No longer did I touch the technology. I was going out there meeting people and friends. I made friends in every country in the world you can think of. I was meeting people in Dubai as an architect, and I met some great people over there. Next week, I am actually in Australia. The week after that, I'm in Hong Kong. The week after that, I'm in London. A lot of the times I would go hide in my home, my vacation home on the beach in Greece, and I would be in my vacation home in Greece and nobody knew. Now, I was able to get a vacation home in Greece because I had a cloud architect job or network architect job or an enterprise architect job that paid it. My previous years as a network engineer, I couldn't afford vacation homes. But I could as an architect. I had a vacation home in Florida, I had a vacation home in Greece, and I lived in New Jersey. And that to me was fun. And it was also fun that I was able to send money to my poor family members back home in Greece in their villages. And that really made me feel good as well. But all in all, every day is a new challenge. Every day. You don't get bored. It's not like you're doing the same thing each day. The people I dealt with were happy, not cranky. Management gave me respect. And I had the money, not that I work for money, I work because I love it, but I had the ability to take care of my wife and support my family members and have vacation homes and still be able to invest and live a life that I love. So Falashaki, for me, architect is the best job in the world. And I was an engineer. I worked 3 times as hard as an engineer for a third of the money. So basically I got paid 1/9 of what I did as an architect, if you do that math, or think of it that way. But it's that. I didn't like when I'd go to the office and I would say hello to the leadership and they looked at me like I was the help. Hey, Mike. And all of a sudden I'm an architect. Hi, Mike, how are you? And for me, it was that. But, here's the thing, Folashaki. It doesn't matter what the job is. It doesn't. It matters that you're happy. I studied internal medicine first. You know what? I liked it. But I was infatuated with tech. And I believe what Mark Twain said. Mark Twain, the author, said if you make your vacation or your vocation, which is your job, your vacation or your holiday, you'll never work a day in your life. It was about 25 years ago, I left medicine and engineering for architecture. I don't think I've ever worked a day in my life. Ever. Ever. I've just loved it. Alonzo, you got a cloud job after our program before I begged you to come back. So what's your favorite part? And I think you're muted, Alonzo. It doesn't look like Alonzo has audio. Like I said, the 2 of us use Macs, and our Macs do not work with our professional grade streaming video, audio, video encoder cards, audio interfaces, preamps, and every other crazy thing that it takes to get our systems to run. Tyrone, let's go to the next one. Oscar Hernandez, how do you deal with the stress from a bad manager? Oscar, let me give you some advice. It's not the stress that matters. It's how you manage that stress. And can you turn the bad manager into a good manager, which is going to be dependent upon your leadership skills. First thing, I'm going to talk about stress. When I was younger, I was a firefighter paramedic. I worked in Philadelphia. I got shot at. People had tried to stab me. And it was constantly dealing with emergencies. Now, here was the good news, Oscar. I was an experienced martial artist and a yogi. And you know what used to happen? I didn't get stressed because it was how I responded to the stress. So, Oscar, I will tell you that on a daily basis, I practice yoga and I also meditate. And I also practice something called cognitive behavior therapy. It was a skill that I learned at the University of Pennsylvania Medical Center, and it's widely taught to Olympic athletes, to business people, and to patients. And Oscar, we all make one of 10 different thoughts. And we all make thinking errors. They're called cognitive distortions, and they increase our stress. One is all or nothing thinking. It has to be everything or nothing. That's just not life. In life, there's a lot of partialities. Other things that we might be talking about, for example, is predicting the future. I failed on these 2 times, so I'm necessarily going to fail in the future. My favorite was one called I Feel This Way. And so it must be true. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she was lovely. She thought flying in airplanes was dangerous. So she kept telling me, don't fly on airplanes, it's dangerous. And even if I told her and showed her the statistics that driving a car was much more dangerous than flying an airplane, don't fly, it's dangerous. No, there's a whole host of them. And whether you're a Navy SEAL or an Olympian, in most cases, these people are taught to take a thought, pass it through a reality filter, and then change that into a positive thought. So personally, I use a combination of meditation, yoga, and emotional intelligence. Now, Oscar, why is this so important? The higher you get in your career, the more stress you're going to have in your life. If you are competing as an Olympian, it's a whole lot harder than competing in Little League. So the better you get, the more stress you're going to get. You know, when I was younger, I was on a team that said, "Here, Mike, you got a $2 million technology quota." Later, I had close to $1 billion quota for a partner that I was dealing with. What are you dealing with? And the stress went up, but I also had more skills to go there. So there's that. Now, the next thing is it really a bad manager? That's the next question. A lot of times people think they have a bad manager, but they really don't. And a lot of times we have the person think they're doing what the manager wants. I'm not saying that's you, but I'm just speaking in general. In other cases, the manager wants something else. I learned this first when I met my wife. Now, I had been told that it was romantic to get people, bring a nice bottle of wine when you go to their house, bring a bottle of wine with dinner. So in every date I took her on for the first 2 months, I brought wine. Thing is, I didn't drink. And she didn't really drink either. And we were both drinking to make each other happy. Now, one day I said, "Do you like the wine?" And she's like, "Well, actually, I don't really like wine. I'm just drinking it to go along." I'm like, "What do you like instead?" She said, "Diet Coke." And I was like, "Woohoo!" I brought a couple of bottles of Diet Coke and she was thrilled. But I would ask your manager, "What are your goals, Mr. or Mrs. Manager? Where are you trying to go? What can I do to help you? What can I do to move up?" And you may find that what you're doing is not what your manager actually wants you to do. And your manager seems like a bad manager when the reality is you've got a mismatch in the communication mismatch. I'm not going to even tell you how many times I've seen this in my career. And the better your empathy and your emotional intelligence and the better your leadership skills gives you the opportunity to schedule. Let's pretend Alonzo's my manager. I might send him a message, "Alonzo, is it okay? Can we set up a time to speak to you?" And then Alonzo would say, "Sure, Mike." And I'd walk and I'd say, "Alonzo, how are you?" And if you looked a little stressed, I might say, "Alonzo, I notice you look a little stressed. Is today still a good day to meet? Is there anything I can do to assist you today? And perhaps we'll have this conversation later." Just by showing an interest in him, they're going to soften, or her, they're going to soften up. And then when you show, "Look, what are your goals so I can help you?" Now you just separated yourself from everybody else. So I don't actually know your situation. I'm giving you some generalities because I don't know the situation, but I believe everybody should meditate. I truly believe in my heart, everybody should have some form of yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong or something like that. And I think we should all analyze the rationale of our thoughts. I do it every day. I was sentenced to yoga 17 years ago from a martial arts instructor. I walked into a yoga studio. It happened to be Native Yoga in Juno Beach, Florida. There was a woman named Tamara McLaughlin teaching a yoga class. Midway through that class, I felt better than I have in ages. Turned out Tamara's husband, Todd, is one of my best friends in the world. He actually spoke at our conference, and he actually has, and we have some of his tactics literally in our program, because most people are going to be stressed when they give a presentation. Most people are going to be stressed when they go on an interview. And here's the big problem with being stressed, Oscar. Not only does it raise our blood pressure, raise our heart rate, and put an additional workload on our heart, it also makes us produce cortisol, which raises our blood sugar, breaks down our muscles, and makes us fat, setting us up for diabetes. But when we are stressed, it shuts down a really important part of our brain. So right now, we're speaking, and I'm using my prefrontal cortex. Now, if somebody tries to stab me with a knife, and I get stressed and I block it, my prefrontal cortex shut down and my amygdala kicked in, and now I'm going to say things that I regret. And if you've ever had a conversation with your spouse, children, your friends, and you got in an argument and you're like, how did I even say that? That's because your prefrontal cortex shut off and your amygdala kicked in. So, Oscar, find a good form of stress management and use it every day. You have any idea, anything you want to add here, Alonzo?
Yeah, you touched on a lot of points that I was already going to say. Is I usually my response is with a question: Why? Why are you stressed out, Oscar? Why is there a disconnect with your manager? Like Mike said, why did you define them as a bad manager? It's obviously there's a lack of communication and misunderstanding of expectations on the both parties' part. Breaking it down is the same way as breaking down architecture. What's the why? Yeah. What components need to be laid out? What's the criteria? What are the problems? What are their expectations? Everything should be attacked, or rather reviewed from that perspective. And people get frustrated, and the stress happens for lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, lack of trying to surmise what the problem is and the subsequent strategy to reach that solution. And these are some of the things that I learned when I was, and admittedly, when I was younger, I was a hothead. Okay. I come from a family of short-tempered people. And I learned very quickly that quick responses from that alligator brain is not the solution. And it causes more problems than it doesn't even solve problems. It creates more problems instead of solving them. So I would go and understand with that manager by having some conversations. What is the breakdown? This is what I visualize. This is what I see. Am I meeting expectations? If so, why not? What are the things that I can do to help become a better employee? Or these are the things that you would like to see. There's a lot of different ways to attack that. But the overall thing is never go to that discussion table angry. Don't honestly go there with no expectation. Go there with a desire to solve a problem and understand each side of the table, and that's where you're growing, and the solutions can start from there. They'll have more respect for you. You'll get an understanding of what their goals are, and that mutual respect will possibly be able to grow into a stronger working relationship where you can ascertain what your manager's needs are, meet them, come up with ideas that can support their goals as well. And as a good manager, they will bring you along for the ride. So look at it from that perspective. And as cliche as it sounds, it's chess over checkers, strategy, looking at everything from both sides of the table, and you'll be able to really move forward from there. So I hope these things are helpful. From Danka. Hello, Mike and Alonzo and the team behind the scenes, our awesome Blue Wrenches. Would you please comment on why you don't recommend starting a career in IT as an IT support or tech support? This is awesome, Mike.
Danica, it's a great question. Danica, I don't know if you're in the United States or if they have what's called soap operas or serials where you live. Now, in America, we had lots of soap operas, things like Days of Our Lives and All My Children. And you want to know the amazing thing? Almost none of them ever made it to the big screen or the movie screen. Almost none of them, Danica. So keep that in the back of your mind. Why? Because they were branded a soapy or a soap star. And nobody ever thinks of a soap star being on the big screen in the movies. Now, there were a couple people that did it, but almost everybody that starts out at the bottom is perceived at the bottom for the rest of their lives. So that's one of them. Once you become in support, here's what people are going to think of you as support. And they're not going to think of you as anything else unless you do a major branding change. And Danica, I'm going to tell you this right now. I work with lots of people that were in support. It takes a lot of brand rehab, a lot of image rehab, and we have to do a whole lot of things to change it. But when somebody works in support, that's fine. But I also want you to consider the financial. Let's say I wanted to train you for support. I could. It would take me 6 months to a year to get you a support job, which is going to pay you about $50,000 a year. And once you're there, we've got a branding problem. Now it's going to take me 6 months, though, to a year to get you a $170,000 job as a cloud architect. So I want you to think about this. You'll easily get, by educating yourself for the right job, an extra $100,000 a year. Over the course of 30 years, that's $3 million. Now, I also want you to understand this. It's pretty easy to get a 5 or a 7% raise if you do a great job every year. So if I start you out at 150, 7% of that is $10,000 that year, the first year, and the next year it'll be like $11,000. The next year it might be $12,000. Compound interest, if you will. If I start you out at 50 in support, you're going to get 5,000, and then maybe 5.5 next time, and then maybe 6 the year after that. So you're going to start yourself at the bottom, and you're going to anchor yourself at the bottom. So let's say I wanted to go negotiate and buy a $500,000 house. If my first offer was at 200 and the people were crazy enough to say, yes, I want 250, then I got the house at half price. Now, if I tried to make somebody a $200,000 offer for that $500,000 house and they said, Mike, come back when you're serious, they wouldn't have let me anchor at such a low position. So when people start out and intentionally get the training, which takes just as much time to get a help desk job as it would a solution architect job, they've intentionally locked their career and they've cost themselves $2 to $5 million over the course of their career. Now, since I'm all about changing lives and getting people the best return on their investment, I never started help desk unless people want to do help desk. Now, Danka, there are people that love help desk and they just want to do that. And for that, it's great. Remember, I believe in if you make your vacation your vocation, you won't work. But most people were told, go start out at help desk, and then they can't get out of there. And that's the reason. I had a student, they recently joined me, and they asked me this question. They said, Mike, I understand it's going to take me 6 to 12 months to become an architect. What if I got a cloud engineer job first? And I said, okay, it'll take me 8 to 15 months to train you to be a cloud engineer, because there's all this coding and all this Terraform and all this Linux and all this Python, all these other things. I was thinking, I can get you a cloud architect job in half the time as a cloud engineer job, and you're going to get paid twice as much. Which do you want? There's no right or wrong. There's which do you want? But I'm an executive. People come to me because they want to earn more. They want to get promoted. They're tired of being treated like the help. And I try to avoid things. Plus, Danica, there's one other thing that I try and look at in life. I'm an executive. I'm an economist. And being so, I look at the supply and the demand of the position, what the need is now and what the need is in the future. And quite frankly, it's impossible for me to hire an architect. I mean, I'll get people that'll come in, but it's like a comedy routine. How would you design this? I'm certified. Okay, next person. How would you design this? I'm certified. How would you design this? The person lies to me. Okay, next person. How would you design this? I don't know. How would you design this? Now, if you can't reach a website, what's the first thing you're going to do? Well, check and see if I have an IP address. Look what the default gateway is. Ping the default gateway. Ping my DNS servers. Perform a trace route. That's easy stuff. But the architecture piece, it's impossible to find somebody that knows how to do it. Because the It's that perfect marriage of business, soft skills, leadership skills, executive skills, and some tech. And that marriage makes it near impossible, because while the world's thinking about getting their next certification, they're not thinking about digital transformation. Makes it impossible to find an architect. While the world's learning how to do a Terraform script to launch something, and the business says, how do you increase my revenue by 3%? Or what technology you can use to reduce my fuel costs for an airplane? There's nobody that can do it. So you're on that supply and demand curve. And actually, while we're at it, let me show you a little bit of the supply and demand curve. I'm going to open up, if I can, I have one on my desktop. I love looking at macroeconomics, and I indulge me. The college professor in me loves teaching macroeconomics. If you understand economics,
let's go for it, Mike.
Everything. So Tyrone, if you let me share this. So Tyrone, for whatever, so Sandanka, for whatever reason, people told people start at help desk. So everybody that wants to starting in help desk. So what you can look at is the intersection of demand and supply, and you'll get a price. See what you have here down here? That's the help desk salary or the support salary. Why? Because it's what everybody tries to do out of school because everybody was told to do it. Now, here's the reality. I don't need any support people. There's plenty of them out there. I don't like to compete. Now, who knows solution design? Nobody. Who has the business acumen to know how to improve business? That still knows solution design? Nobody. Who can give a presentation in front of a board? Not many. Who can write a white paper or a thought leadership document to drive sales and influence the industry? Not many. Who has executive presence? Who knows what a CXO cares about? And now you got a salary that's over here. So, the choice is what you want to make. Do you want to have the skills that everybody else has, in which case you are a commodity, or do you want to have the skills of that no one else does? I'll give you an example from my life. I studied internal medicine. I was a nurse practitioner. An internal medicine physician gets paid $200,000 a year? Now, I have a friend that's an orthopedic surgeon that only focuses on knees. Why this guy picked knees? I have absolutely no idea, but this guy's known to be the best knee surgeon in the country for knees. He doesn't take insurance. It's $20,000 to have him work on your knee. He does 5 knees per day. He makes $100,000 a day or $500,000 a week because he's got a rare skill that he's so good at. So the internal medicine doctor's working 60 hours a week doing rounds on their patients, earning $200,000 a year. And this guy's working 6 hours a day, earning $500,000 a week. There you go. That's why.
From John, is a CISSP certification mandatory in order to be hired as a security architect?
John, there are 0 certifications that are mandatory to be hired as a cloud architect or a cloud security architect. Delray Bat, we got him hired. Guess what? He did not have a single certification in the world before he got his first cloud security architect job. Robert West, he didn't have anything like that. He did have an AWS cloud practitioner before his certification job. Employers hire John on skills. They don't hire based on certifications. They just don't care. I've asked thousands of hiring managers, do you care about certifications? And this started 25 years ago. And they said, I do care about the CCA. And I said, why? And they said, there's at least a 60% chance if I hire a CCIE, they know something. I'm like, well, I get that. And they said, Cisco gives us a discount on our service if we have CCIEs. That's why I want a CCIE, because it gives me a return on my investment. I go, okay, got it. So I did the CCIE. It was a fairly exhausting 5 days to pass the exam. And it did take me a full 5 days. Cisco brought in people. All the systems engineers went through this 5-day boot camp. At the end of the 5-day boot camp, we all passed the CCIE, or at least everybody that I knew did. In the end, did I learn anything about security? Not really. But I did get a better understanding of security policy, which was good, and some of the considerations to think about, which was good. And all in all, I stuck that thing on my resume. And you know what? It was pretty helpful. And you want to hear the scariest thing, John? I finally got my first and best executive job, where I was responsible for an entire industry vertical at Cisco. I was a director. It was a director level architecture position. I reported straight into the VP. And you know what he told me? Mike, Could you get rid of your CCIE and your CISSP? It's on your business cards and I don't want it to be there. And I'm like, I'm the lead enterprise architect. Why don't you want it to be there? And he said, Mike, so I'm going to ask you the question. I'll put it on your terms. This is up to you. Do you want to be seen as an executive architect that is a CXO relevant leader and an industry leader and a thought leader? Or do you want to be seen as a guy with a techie with a bunch of certifications? Got rid of those things, got a promotion. So the key is it's only necessary to get you the interview. And once you get the interview and you get hired, it doesn't matter thereafter because they're looking for skills, not certifications. But when it's your first job and you have no experience, I like 2 to 3 good, strong certifications. And the CISSP looks good. Now, the security engineers hate it, but that doesn't matter. They're not hiring you. They hate it because it's not really a deep one, because it doesn't have any configuration or hands-on, which is perfect because architects aren't hands-on. And it teaches the things that go together. And so it kind of keeps it in the back of your life.
From Grace. Good afternoon, Mike. I recently got laid off from my job as an Azure Assistant Cloud Engineer. I had this position for 2 years. Haven't landed anything yet. Do you have any advice on what I could do one month post the layoff?
Absolutely, Grace. And I am so sorry to hear about your situation. Grace, if you may recall, a year ago and 4 or 5 other times we asked people to get out of cloud engineering positions and to move into cloud architect and solution architect positions. The reason we said these are as follows. We know that artificial intelligence will probably steal at least 30% of cloud engineering positions. At the same time, Grace, it doesn't matter whether my cloud engineer is in California, Cambodia, or Cameroon. And since employees don't want to work in the office, even though the companies want them to come back in, not that I'm blaming employees, why would I hire somebody in the US when I could hire them outside the US at a lower cost and get someone that's hungry and willing to work? So, Grace, there's still options for you. The first thing that I would do is I would go out there and I would go build my brand. I would go out there and I would create content and I would show myself as a leader. Now, what does this mean? This does not mean making some silly post on LinkedIn where you write a 10-page document on how to configure an Apache web server. That tells me why I should not hire you, because it's showing me that you can't communicate in 3 words, sudo apt install Apache, or yum install HTTPD, or something like that. Now, Grace, if you've got 2 years experience in cloud engineering, talk about it. Talk about how do you create high availability cloud solutions across 2 clouds. Talk about securing a cloud environment. Talk about why most cloud architectures actually fail to drive digital transformation. In fact, 60% of all cloud architectures cost more money than the previous architecture and fail to deliver. Why is that? I mean, I could tell you why in a second and a half. It's because people are designing the tech and not designing the transformation. They're not focusing on the business, they're focusing on the tech. They were the people that got hired 10 years ago as cloud architects when there was nobody out there that got certified and knew nothing. But talk about why. So go out there, Grace, write content, give presentations, go meet people. Find yourself some really good recruiters. And I don't know where you're at. I know some great people in New York, but find yourself some great recruiters and show people you're there. Now, at the same time, Grace, get out of the careers of the past. Get out of them. Get out of engineering and move into architecture. In the future, I'm not going to need a cloud engineer to write a Terraform script. I'm going to use AI. Move into architecture. Get the training and get the education. And if you do that, the options you actually have will be fantastic. And that's really what I want you to understand is I want you to have skills that nobody's focused on, that nobody's actually focused on. And the next thing I want you to do is I want you to create a real LinkedIn page. And on your LinkedIn page, I want you to post your experiences. My team actually pulled your LinkedIn right now so I could look at it. It's not out there working for you. LinkedIn is strong. I need you to put your work experience that are there. And I actually need a real about you executive summary that's going to appeal for employers. Show me what you can do for me instead of telling me about you. And that's the thing. When you want to sell, it doesn't matter what you want. It matters what they want. Now, Grace, when I read your LinkedIn, it says, hi there. Right then and there, it's over. I'm not going to read anymore. Now, the next thing you put is, I'm a Grace, a dedicated junior consultant. Grace, I don't hire junior consultants. And I want to tell you why. And I don't want you to be a junior consultant. I want you to be a senior consultant, and you can. I don't hire junior consultants for the following reason, and neither do 90% of employees. Junior consultant means I hire somebody and I have to dedicate a $200,000 person to check in and watch everything they do and tutor them. There's plenty of people that aren't junior that I can hire that can do the job from job one. So go out there and change your brand. Don't be a junior cloud engineer, be a real cloud engineer. And every day while you're waiting for your next job, make yourself better. Sharpen the axe, as they like to say. Whether it's Python, whether if you want to stay in engineering, what's your Python skill like? What's your Terraform skill like? What's your Linux skill? And get better every day. And each day show the world that you're an expert. You'll have another job and it'll pay you far, far, far more than any cloud computing and cloud engineer assistant role. And you'll be there. But right now, you got to fix that resume. I don't know what it looks like. That LinkedIn profile of yours, it's not working for you. Go out there, create it. We actually have a course on branding and resume if you want, but I'd rather see you take our architect training program, which includes that, and you'll build an entire career. But go out there and build the brand, and that brand matters. Why do you think Apple can charge whatever it wants? It's got a brand. Why do you think Ferrari can charge more than a Corvette? Same speed, same power. The Ferrari's $250,000. The Corvette's $60,000. Why? Brand. So go out there, Grace, and really boo your packaging. Fix that LinkedIn profile. Sharpen the tool. Make yourself not junior. The first job I got was a senior engineer. I didn't learn junior skills. I don't hire junior people. If you look at our YouTube channel, you'll see how to get a job as a fresher, and it talks about not being junior and how to go in and get senior level skills. Go do it, Grace. Why don't you come tomorrow to our How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, and I can actually talk to you in person as well. And even if your question's on engineering, I'll be able to give you a mini interview. I'll be able to see your strengths, Grace, and I'll be able to guide you even better. And I'd really want to, because I'm so sorry about your job loss. And I know we can get you hired either as an architect or as a full engineer, not a junior engineer. And I don't want you to be junior. I want you to show the world what you can do. And I want you to go really enjoy your life. So please come tomorrow. It's free. And I'll do anything I can to assist you there.
Thanks, Mike. Awesome. From Diggleman, do employers usually check credit for IT positions?
Well, there's two sides of it. They're going to have to check your credit. And the reason they're going to have to check your credit is they're going to give you a corporate credit card.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't give you a corporate credit card without checking your credit. Now, I also want you to consider something else. Many years ago, I had spoken to an employer, and he said, I want to check your credit. I'm like, that's fine. Go ahead. Because I knew I had a credit score of about 800. And I said, I'm thrilled that you want to check my credit. I pay everything in full, but why? And he gave me, the manager gave me a very good answer. And he said, Mike, your credit is a reflection of who you are. And I said, could you elaborate? He said, Mike, if I loaned you a screwdriver, would you return it? And I said, yes. And then the manager said, if I loaned you a screwdriver and it broke, what would you do? I said, I'd go to the store and I'd buy the same screwdriver or a better screwdriver and give it back to you. And he said, see, that's good credit. If you borrow money, will you pay it back? And I said, yes. And he said, that's why we check for credit. Now, I've also been a landlord, Dingleman, and I know you, Dingleman, and many times I've accepted people with less than optimal credit. If they had a reason. Maybe a person's spouse died and they built up bills. Maybe there was a divorce. One time, I had a really sweet woman. She worked at Johnson & Johnson. She had the worst credit in the world. But I called her and spoke to her on the phone. And I asked her, I said, could you explain this credit to me? And she said, Mike, I was dating one of the NBA players that was out there. He put a whole bunch of stuff on my credit card, broke up with me and never paid it. And she said, I'm doing everything I can to fix it. She said, I went and got an MBA from, was it Duke or UNC Chapel Hill? I can't remember. It was one of those two. And I'm trying real hard. And I said, welcome to our home. And she said, even with my bad credit, I said, you've got a reason for it. So there's that. But yes, we typically check credit. And most employers will also typically check for criminal backgrounds as well. And some employers will actually do drug testing. Yeah. I got to tell you, a lot of employers have skipped the drug testing these days, unless it's a driving position or something like that. They found too many people were testing positive for marijuana. And it was almost like, what are we going to do with half of our population testing positive for marijuana? And, oh, by the way, it's legal in half the country too. Yeah. So how do you say I can't hire this person because they're using marijuana when it's legal in 50% of the states? So a lot of organizations aren't doing that. But it's like anything else, Dingelman. If you have something that's less than optimal, what's your explanation like? It's all that it really matters. What's your explanation like? Have a good one. In the end, it doesn't matter.
From Evans, how does a person from Cameroon apply for a remote or on-site solutions architect positions in the United States?
Evans, great question. So just to let you know, behind the scenes, there's Tyrone, if he wants to pop his head in. Tyrone is in Cape Town, South Africa right now. Now, I also have Eddie, who's part of my team. He's a great guy. He lives in Bamenda, Cameroon, and he works for us. So, here's the thing. If you are great, I mean truly great, it doesn't matter. Personally, I love hiring people in Africa because they're always excited about working. And everybody's super nice to me. And I love that. But the key is it's not about applying. And I know this sounds crazy. But actually, it depends on your background. If you have a lot of experience as a solution architect, go apply for the job if you've got a perfect resume. If you don't, I need you to go out there and do stuff and meet people. What are you writing about? Is it thoughtful? Or is it the same as everybody else? I can find 10,000 people used to go to cloud computing because it's scalable and it's cheaper. And a person realizes it and says the cloud's more expensive. Don't hire. Like the sound used to be. But by the same concept, what we're talking is really going out there and building your brand. So go out there and meet people, be seen, write content, do all those things, and you'll be good to go.
Great response, Mike. From 26 Timor, hello, Mike and Alonzo. My question is, can you comment about how many companies are migrating from the cloud back to their data center because of the cost? Will that affect the cloud architecture future?
Nope. So 26 Timor, we told you years ago the cloud was going to be substantially more expensive. Mm-hmm. In my data center, which runs a cloud, it runs an OpenStack private cloud. I bought servers. They were refurbished servers for $10,000. They are the same servers that AWS uses in their iSeries instances. AWS wanted $11,000 a month. I bought these servers from Amazon on the Amazon website for $1,000 each. The cloud has always been more expensive. What happened is people got certified. They didn't know anything about cloud computing. They got their people excited. They shoved it all in a single cloud. They had major outages, major security violations, and cost overruns. Of course they did. Why did it? Of course they did. Nobody ever asked the executives, what's the strategy for your business? How do you make money now? They just shove these stupid proprietary systems down people's throats, and they had cost overruns. It was the worst architectural migration to the cloud I've ever seen. But the agility and scalability and flexibility of the public cloud is so good, there's no business that's going to operate without cloud computing. None, zero. Now, the good news is because we train cloud architects, not solutions architects, we work with a lot of clients who develop OpenStack or Nutanix clouds. They then burst to public clouds. So I want you to think about the real cloud architectures that real businesses do, as opposed to the silly business they teach in an AWS certification. I have the best performance, the highest security, and the most control in my data center. I do. But what problems do I have in the data center? What am I going to do when I'm constantly maybe running out of storage or servers or something? So many organizations are using hybrid clouds. And guess what? That means more cloud architect jobs, because we're taking the systems from the data center, we're turning that into a cloud, which gives us auto scaling, functions as a service, the same kind of things like Lambda, all that cool stuff in our data center. And guess what? When we need capacity, we can automatically set it to scale it on AWS, Azure, and Google all at the same time. Now let's also think about it. Do we think Microsoft has the best AI systems out there in the entire world right now, followed by Google as number 2, and AWS is playing catch up? So might it make sense to have my data center for what it's good at, run some of my machine learning things inside of the Microsoft cloud, and do disaster recovery in the AWS or the Google cloud? No, all this AI stuff. AI architecture is cloud architecture. I'm going to say it again. AI architecture is cloud architecture. So 2016 more, I don't care whether you call me a cloud architect, an enterprise architect, or a solution architect, I'm doing the same job. I'm designing systems for my people. Now, how many people have I trained cloud architects that became managers or VPs or directors of the IT department in their data center? Many. How many of my people have left our training and designed OpenStack clouds? A whole lot. How many of my people did I train that now work for Google or Azure or AWS or Accenture, Deloitte or KPMG, Capgemini? A whole lot. A whole lot. So this cloud repatriation thing, we told everybody it was coming. 3 years ago, and we should get videos of me telling everybody where I said, don't use a single cloud, it's a single point of failure, it's going to hurt your business. 3 years ago, you should have heard me see people say cloud computing is much more expensive, make sure you design it right. Years ago, I said everybody would be multi-cloud. Now it's 98% multi-cloud. Now cloud repatriation, which I told everybody is going back, and now everything is a hybrid multi-cloud, just like I told people years ago. Now, I worked as a tech futurist for much of my career when I was at Cisco, and our team used to feed into the CEO of new product service strategies based upon our working with executives. In fact, I've run business councils with C-suite leaders to tell us what they need. And guess what? They all want cloud computing, but it's going to be it's going to be a methodological cloud computing environment, and it's going to make sense financially. So all kinds of exciting things coming for the cloud architect, many, many, many more jobs. And some of the jobs for the architect might be getting some of this stuff off the cloud and sticking it into a private cloud. Still cloud computing. So pretty great.
So if you have any questions, please feel free, ask them. We definitely want to help you. We definitely want, okay, great. From John, in Europe, the majority of cloud architect roles involve implementation.
Actually,
some go with, what did you say?
Some go to include CIC and DevOps. John, they're not cloud architect jobs.
Yeah.
John, I get people hired in England every day, all over Europe, and none of them touch the technology. No, John, they design it, they present it, they sell it. They write statements of work. They do all these things. Now, John, I am very familiar with a whole lot of fake architect jobs in Europe. And I've had many students tell me, Mike, they'll want me to do DevOps. And I say, tell them that you're not a DevOps engineer, you're an architect. And John, something amazing happens. They get jobs that pay 3 times more than the ones that want them to configure, because they're not architect jobs, they're engineering jobs, and they're using the term semantics. And they're basing it off of the silly certification. Architects do not touch the technology. The second you touch the technology, you are no longer an architect. And why? Here's the reason why. As soon as you touch the technology, your focus is on the technology. Now, John, there was a really good article in CIO Dive, and I really want you to look at it. And it talked about why 60% of cloud architectures are abject failures. Why they are such disasters. And the reason they're such disasters is as follows. If your focus is on the tech, not on the business, do you know what's really going to happen? Everything becomes an absolute disaster. So yes, there are really bad organizations out there that decide that they can get their people to do 2 jobs at once. The people become engineers, not architects. And Tyrone, you can pop this link in the box and their focuses. So what is your focus? Personally, I focus on digital transformation. I'm not an engineer. I have no interest in being an engineer. I have an interest in a job that pays me 3 times more than the ones where I have to implement. And I have an interest where I can help my clients. If you are the manager and the worker at the same time, the business will fail. If you go to talk to your client, and actually it's funny because one of my students said this to me yesterday, and we were teaching them about, how do you find this vision and the strategy from the C-suite? And then we were talking about mapping out all the architecture for the business processes. And we were talking about the business processes for the future. And we were talking about mapping out the data and then the business and how do we want the data to be in the future, and then the technology and governance strategies and this. And they were saying, Mike, how much time do we need? And I said, you might have 100 architects that you're working with in a team. And what's even funnier was when Chris and I and all these companies call us and they say, Mike, we're having a hard time finding architects. I got all these people that can do hands-on. I ask them design questions and they can't do it. So John, yes. John, I actually knew people in England many years ago, and they were an architect, and we looked at their salary and we're like, there's a zero missing, right? And they're like, no. I'm like, you got to be earning at least 100,000 pounds sterling more than this. And they were like, no. And then we asked them what they did. And we're like, oh, so you've been an engineer. And they're like, no, I got an architect title. I'm like, but you're not doing architecture. I can show you architects in every country of Europe that never touch the tech. I can show you architects in New Zealand that never touch the tech, Australia that never touch the tech, South America, Central America, Canada, the US, the UK. If you're touching the tech, you are working as an engineer regardless of your title. Now, to be fair, John, I did have an architect job many years ago for a South African company called Dimension Data. And on my first day on the job, they said to me, well, Mike, we got a little bit of engineering in your job. And I said, explain this to me. They said, well, if our post-sales team doesn't hear, we want you to implement it. I said, but you posted an architect job. They're like, Mike, engineer, architect, we wanted to be able to pay you what you're worth, so we gave you an architect title. And I said, it was nice to meet you when I walked out the door. And they said, what? I'm like, I'm sorry, you hired me to be an architect. It looks like you want me to do engineering. No, thank you. But I'm like, it's okay. I've got 3 other jobs waiting for me. You misled me. And that's okay, but I can't stay. And then they're like, how about if I pick? I'm like, it's not what you're going to pay me. It's that I am an architect and I don't want to be an engineer. You lied to me about the job. You told me it was this. And you just told me the reason you lied to me about the job was to get me to come over because you needed CCIEs and a certain salary. I said, goodbye. Walked out the room, went over to Comcast as a principal architect and went and designed their backbone. Done life. Real architects don't touch the technology, and not in Europe and not in England, not in my home in Greece, not anywhere. You can't fly an airplane and keep the people in their seats at the same time. That's why doctors don't work as nurses either. It's all the same thing.
From Mountain Naj, new here, no IT experience, but have a bachelor's in human biology and work healthcare. What are some of the first steps I should take? We got a question for you, though.
Yep.
What do you want to be? We want to give you the directions, the right ones, and the quickest way possible, but we need a starting point. Mountain Naj, what do you want to be?
And you say healthcare, so I don't really know what that means, but I did used to practice internal medicine, and before that I was a nurse. The education of a doctor or a physician, a nurse, a physical therapist, a respiratory therapist are all different with different skills. Okay, you say solutions architect. Okay. Well, the good news is you're from healthcare, and believe it or not, it's much easier for me to get a healthcare person hired than it actually usually is a technology person, because of the emotional intelligence that's necessary for healthcare. So the first thing that I want you to do is to download the free guide on how to get your first cloud architect job. My team will pop it in the chat box. Next, tomorrow, got lucky. I'm running a free live webinar. On this How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, we will have a live presentation. We will go over the role. We will talk about every skill that you actually need, what you need to learn. And then you can ask us questions. And here's the good news. We can actually ask you questions. We can assess your communication skills. We can assess your leadership skills. We can assess your business acumen, or what you have or don't have. And then we can give you the skills. Here is what you need to understand as an architect. Your whole goal is to consult with a client to improve their business. Now, Mountain Naj, here's the good news. You know where I received my architecture training for real? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a CCIE and I did all those cloud certifications and all those networking certifications and security ones. I didn't learn any architecture there. I learned architecture by learning how to practice medicine. Here, I'll give you an example. Alonzo, you now have a sore throat. It just popped in. Alonzo, what brings you into my office today?
Sore throat.
Alonzo, what makes your sore throat better?
Warm liquids, soup, tea.
Okay. What makes your throat worse?
Cold, external and internal liquids.
Okay. Alonzo, do you mind if I check your lymph nodes, look in your eyes, ears, nose, throat, listen to your heart, lungs, and push on your belly?
Yes, please.
Okay. So now, Alonzo came in, he had a problem. I asked him some questions. Now I'm going to do my exam. Alonzo, you have pharyngitis. Alonzo, were you allergic to any medications?
No.
Alonzo, I'm going to give you a prescription for amoxicillin, 500 milligrams 4 times a day. I want you to take it for 10 days. If you don't get better, in 2 weeks, come back to me, okay? So Mountain Naj, here's what just happened. Alonzo came in with something called the chief complaint, his problem, his throat hurts. I asked him some questions. Next, I made a diagnosis, and the last thing I did is I came up with a plan. Now, Alonzo, you're now the CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and you're working on, let's say, a new course, and you need the technology systems. Alonzo, how are you doing? Could you tell me why you called me? What you're looking to do?
Yes, Mike, we have a multi-billion-dollar business that extends across 2 or 3 continents. Our focus is delivering high response, quick responses to our clientele and to our markets. We also focus on multinational and multicultural markets as well. So making sure that the latency that we have is reduced down to a minimum. We're also very concerned about our security as well. So we want to emphasize that across those European as well as American markets, that the associated compliance related to that is thought of when creating those type of identity secured accounts, as well as making sure that we have those points of presence, those edge computing opportunities, and how all that comes together in a network environment. How can you solve for that?
Sure. Let me ask you some questions. Alonzo, how does your typical customer find you?
Typical customer finds us via the internet, via our multiple cultural websites that we have globally.
Okay. How many languages are your websites in?
13.
How many people are involved in translation in your company?
We're looking at per area, we're looking at probably 35, maybe to 100 people per culture and per location and nationality.
Okay. How long does it actually take to get a client on the phone with someone that can speak to them in their language under the current situation?
Too long. And we're working on trying to facilitate solutions for that.
Okay. Is your data all in your data center? Is it in the cloud, for example, right now?
It's currently in the data center, but now we are getting to a point where we are too big for just to have a data center, and we're considering cloud opportunities.
Okay, Alonzo, what I need to do is I need to meet with your department heads. I need to meet with your team leads. I need to understand the struggles your employees are there. And do you mind if I get a couple of people call in from different languages to try and get a customer experience and see what's good and what doesn't work?
Absolutely. We welcome the opportunity.
Alonzo, thank you for the opportunity of meeting with me last week. I went back and I built a team of about 35 architects. I got some people from the data science world. I got some artificial intelligence people. I got a lot of security people. I brought in some network architects, some identity and access management architects. I also spoke to several cloud and several DevOps engineers. Upon examination of your systems, here's what we found. For the most part, your systems are running very smoothly, but You've got some capacity limitations specifically in your website. We'd like to turn your data center into a Nutanix cloud and leverage auto scaling to the public cloud providers, and that way you never run out of capacity. As we started to look at your traffic flows and your languages, we're seeing a commonality. They're typically speaking English, French, Arabic, and Spanish, and Mandarin. The good news is, our AI team and our data scientists have found a way to mine through the common questions, and we can train an artificial intelligence model that can do the first and second level questions. And then they can go as needed to one of your people. That'll deliver the time instantly. So there's no wait for someone to find somebody, and yet the people will still be there. Upon asking your people, we also found that your phone systems are really suboptimal. We notice you've got this Avaya hybrid solution that's still running out there. We'd like to put you up in a complete unified communication system. We can also add an expert network. We can find the right expert to ask the right question at the right time by finding the right person who's available, who's not available in anywhere in the world. And that we feel we can best host in your data center, but giving you some cloud and putting all this machine learning, artificial intelligence on the Azure cloud. Now, by doing so, we feel we can actually enhance your revenue by having much higher satisfied customers. We believe we can reduce your translator staff by about 25% and still optimize the thing. And we can add moves, adds, and change to your users so they can be anywhere in the world with the same phone number and communicate to people. And we can do it about 45% cheaper than you have in the past. Would you like to hear more?
Absolutely, Mike. We look forward to more discussions.
So as you see, Mountain Knowledge, and if I said, Mike, what brings you in today as a doctor, and I say, what brings you in as an architect, it's the same thing. If I then examine the systems as an architect or the doctor, pushing on somebody, and then as an architect, I bring in some cloud engineers to do that, done. And then if I make a diagnosis as a doctor or nurse practitioner, physician assistant, I make a diagnosis as an architecture. And then as a doctor, I make a plan called the prescription. And then as an architect, I make a plan called an architecture. Now, the doctor doesn't give the pills to the patient. That's what a nurse does. And the architect doesn't build the systems. That's what cloud engineers and DevOps engineers do. That's it. So now you know. So come tomorrow, download that free guide. We will tell you everything you need to know. Everything you need to know. And I promise you it's going to be closer to be a cloud architect or a solution architect to what you're already doing than anything related to engineering. Tomorrow, I can't wait to meet you in public. I can speak and can talk live on Zoom.
We're looking forward to it. From Leo, is it possible to start as an enterprise architect without an MBA?
Absolutely. It's really funny. I don't care what people's degrees are in. I don't care what certifications are in. I care what they know and what their skills are. Now, I had an MBA long before I got an enterprise architect job, but I've gotten many people enterprise architect jobs without MBAs. I got Daniel Boso a cloud architect job, and he didn't even graduate high school. I recently helped Angelo get an enterprise architect job. Now, Angelo was an awesome architect. He got the job and then started an MBA program to better himself. He's a world-class architect. And, it was Pritpal. We got him an architect job. He didn't have an MBA. Now, Wallace. Did Wallace have an MBA when we helped him get his architect job at JP Morgan Chase? Wallace may have.
I'm not sure.
So the answer is, Leo, absolutely. But you must have MBA knowledge.
Yes. That's
the key, is you have to have the knowledge. Now, if you got the knowledge because you read 2,000 business books, great. If you got the knowledge because your father was the CEO of a company and you sat next to him or all day, or your mother was, great. And if you don't, and you were trained it, great. Doesn't matter. It's all about having the necessary business acumen, leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence to do the job. That's it.
I think we have one more question out there from TestSoc. And they mention, what is the difference between a cloud architect and security architect roles, cloud security architect roles? Also, when would cloud security architect come into place, since the cloud architect needs to know about security as well?
Well, Tessock, you're talking about a generalist versus a specialist. If you go to your internal medicine doctor, like I just did with Alonzo, he came in for a sore throat. But if Alonzo's blood pressure was high, I would do that. I know how to treat that too. If he had diabetes, and thank God he doesn't, I could treat his diabetes. And if he had an infection on his toe because he stubbed his toe, I could treat that too. Now, if he had high blood pressure, Tessock, and he was my patient, I'm going to send him to a cardiologist anyway to get the expert that only does cardiology. So it's the same thing in architecture. The generic architect needs to know a little bit about everything. But when you're the generic architect, you can't know enough about anything because you're focused on everything. Business skills, sales skills, leadership skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence. So when it comes down to security as an enterprise architect or a cloud architect, I'm going to call a cloud security architect. The reason, if you're one of my students, you see so much security from me is because I worked as a security architect for a little while. So I happen to have a lot of security architect background. But normally, no, a regular cloud architect wouldn't be able to get the level of security that my students get. It's a generic position. So a security architect, and get rid of that silly word cloud in front of security architect, because it's the same security architect. If I'm building a demilitarized zone with next generation firewalls in my data center, they call me a security architect. If I'm designing a demilitarized zone on the cloud, it's the same next generation firewalls. It's not like we can use WAF. Guess what? Going to be the same Palo Alto, Fortinet, Checkpoint, Cisco firewalls. I'm still a security architect. Now, they may call me a cloud security architect, but here's the thing. Become a security architect. You work on the cloud and off the cloud. And the security architect is responsible for the organization's security, whether it be in their data center, private cloud, public cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. And what are we using as security people? The same tools. Identity and access management is typically going to be performed by Active Directory in a federated environment in the data center or the cloud. Next generation firewalls in the data center, in the cloud. Potentially intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems. Same in the data center, same in the cloud. How about data loss prevention strategies? Data center, cloud, pretty similar. How about SIEM or event correlation monitoring? Same systems anyway. So really, that's the thing. Cloud architect, big picture. You know, you can almost think about the cloud architect as the person that goes and gets all the other architects. Now, Tessock, if you noticed in the role play that I just did with Alonzo, I said I brought in a security architect, an IAM architect, a big data architect, a data scientist, DevOps engineers, and cloud engineers. Because if my focus is everything, I can't know enough about anything to really build a big, giant, billion-dollar architecture. I'm going to need a team. So if you're a security architect, you're going to be the person I call as a cloud architect for security guidance. If you're a cloud architect, you're a generalist, and you better bring in a whole bunch of experts for every architecture you have. You want to go fast? Go alone. You want to go far? Go together. And honestly, if I tried to tell somebody that I designed their architecture myself, even being an architect for 25 years, they'd laugh me out of the office. Watch. Hey, Alonzo, I've been an architect for 25 years now. You told me you do $45 billion in sales, and I went back, I worked hard, I got 10 certifications, and I designed your architecture.
No.
Now, Tessock, I want you to try this. Alonzo, and I really enjoyed our last meeting. I enjoyed meeting with your department heads. I enjoyed testing it out and really getting the customer journey. After that, I spoke to several people. I built a team that had 2 cloud network architects. I also brought in 3 security architects. I brought in an identity and access management architect and a zero trust architect. Because of your artificial intelligence desires, I brought in a data scientist, a big data architect, and an AI architect. Now, I also want to make sure your systems are easy to manage. So we brought in some of the sysops or the maintenance people along the way. And I really want to increase the velocity that we can do your deployment. So I brought in a half a dozen DevOps engineers that are going to put this together. Would you like to learn more about this architecture?
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you for the details.
So in one case, I'm like, look at me. In another case, it's like, look who I brought with me. Architecture is a team sport. Go out there and build the best teams you can, or be that specialist, and that's great too. I love those specialists. I love them. I was one for a long time in networking and IP multicast video and BGP. And I might even have 3 different network architects. One might be an expert on BGP. One might be an expert on IP multicast. One might even be software-defined networking WANs. And that's the case. It really doesn't matter. Build your team. You're only as good as your weakest link. So build those relationships and go out there. Well, I don't know about you guys. I had fun today.
Definitely, Mike, we did.
And anytime I get to meet people to try and help people get to their goals, I have fun.
Yeah.
I personally love it.
Absolutely, Mike. And we've illustrated a lot of what is required to become a cloud architect, whether you have experience or not, and regardless of your background experience. And understand that it's from both the business as well as the technology side. And we always focus on what it means to create solutions using both sides of that coin. So please join us tomorrow when we have our next webinar. Bring your questions. Look at our website at www.gocloudcareers.com. Consider our development program so that we can get you to where you need to be in the most efficient, most competent way possible.
So thanks for joining us. Download the completely free guide on how to get your first cloud job or cloud architect job. Come to the free webinar tomorrow. And oh, by the way, next week we've got a free AWS bootcamp. Join us too.
Take care, everyone. And it's a pleasure to see you again. Join us next time.
Take care. Bye, everyone.